Alright, we are talking bone broth today because that is what we're making. So actually by the time this video gets put up, I've been working on this bone broth for going on 4 days. But bone broth, what is it? So it's basically a stock made out of dinner scraps, meaty dinner scraps. Bone broth has been around for a very long time. The concept has a long, deep, rich history, and you can see it going back centuries. I mean, in a time when a successful hunt was quite rare, it is no surprise that our ancestors took their cues from fellow four-legged hunters and found ways to access the wonderful nutritional benefits that bone marrow can give you. I mean, bone marrow is a powerhouse. It has wonderful vitamins, minerals, and multiple nutrients that help build proteins, and those proteins are used in a variety of jobs, from maintaining your skin or to reproducing cells. I mean, it's also got nutrients in there that help to protect bones and joints, and people take supplements to help with that. But just like anything else, our bodies are so much better at taking up and utilizing those same supposed nutrients that people use supplements or take supplements for when it's in a biocompatible setting. A lab creation is not biocompatible. Bone broth is. So that's what we're doing today. So my idea of broth is simply the boiled water remains and flavorings after boiling meat. Whereas stock, which is what we're going for here, is much denser, nutrient dense, it's richer, and it takes a longer time to process. Now, people use those terms interchangeably all the time, and it's really a matter of personal choice. What are you looking for? Do you just want the broth where you can boil off the rest of the meat scraps and then be done with it? Or are you going to let it go longer? So I'm going to take you through the process where you go longer with it. And you can use anything. You can use a fresh set of soup bones that you could find from your butcher or in the grocery store. I typically just save all of our dinner scraps. Like, for instance, we had ribs for dinner last night. Instead of throwing the ribs to the dogs or throwing the ribs in the garbage, I bag them up and put them in the freezer until I have enough saved up to do a batch. Now, a batch for me is what I can fit in my crock pot. But rib bones aren't the only thing you can use. I save all my chicken carcasses when we cook whole chickens. I save all our rabbit carcasses even after I've boiled them off to shred the rest of the meat for soups or pot pies and things like that. There's still marrow inside those bones. There's still good stuff inside those bones. So I save them all. The holidays, those turkey carcasses will be wonderful for this. Whatever it is on hand. Now just keep in mind, obviously your nutritional value is determined largely by how the animal was raised. So if you don't know how the animal was raised, you're not really going to have a good idea of what your nutritional value is. But whether we get it store-bought or raise it ourselves, I still save them. To me, the benefits outweigh the unknown aspect on that. So we are making bone broth. Let's get started. Okay, so as I said before, we just save all of our dinner scraps, and I like to roast my bones in the broiler for 30 to 45 minutes. Ask 10 different people how long to roast them, and you'll get 10 different answers. Some folks also suggest taking a hammer to your bones after roasting. I personally don't do this because I don't need bone slivers flying around with a toddler who seems insistent on putting anything and everything in her mouth. Neither the heat or the smashing of the bones is really necessary. It just is an extra step that you can do to help expose the marrow and lessen the cook time. And then after that, it's as simple as tossing the bones into the crock pot. I like using the slow cooker because we always have a lot going on. And what's nice about a slow cooker, just like when you use it for cooking meals, you can walk away and not worry about it. So if I have to make a quick run to the feed store, if we have to take the kids to the doctor's office, I can let this cook and not have to stop and start, stop and start. So I'll put them in the crock pot, top it up with water. I can fit around a gallon of water in there, depending on how bulky the bones are. And then I throw a splash of apple cider vinegar in with it also. The vinegar, will help to soften the bones and extract the marrow. There's no wrong or right recipe. If you want to add vegetables, you are absolutely free to do so. I just like to keep mine simple and I just use the bones. And then we let it boil. I like to let these boil for 48 hours. Delicious. Alright, so how do we know when our bone broth is ready? What you're looking for is a nice deep golden color like this, but it's really up to you. I got to this point after 48 hours of boiling. Now keep in mind, I start that clock after the water starts to boil. And in my crock pot, that takes 3 to 4 hours. So the bones were still quite hard, so I put them back in the crock pot. I added more water and another dollop of vinegar, and we're gonna boil them again. I could just keep topping it up and end up with a really thick bone broth, but I try to get as much out of it as I can. And even though your first batch is always going to be so much richer and more dense, the second batch is still pretty darn good and definitely worth the time and effort. Look at this beautiful goodness just boiling away. This is the second boiling I've done, and we're almost at 48 hours of boiling, a little over 36 for this second batch. I did top it off once with a quart of water, so this still looks pretty good. It's still going to give me a really nice thick broth. I'm debating on whether or not I should keep cooking it down and get some true stock out of this. It'll take longer, but see, you can see that. Oh, so beautiful. So we'll see. When I hit my 48-hour time frame, I'll decide whether or not I want to turn it into stock or not. But I could probably get another good boiling out of these bones still, too. Well. Got about 9.5 more hours on this one, so we'll see how it looks. Look at that. That's how you know you have pulled all the goodies out of your bones. Look at that. Just boom. These guys are done.